The Young and the Restless spoilers for Tuesday, April 1st state that Billy Abbott will receive unpleasant news, while Adam Newman pushes Sally Spectre too far. Nate Hastings will also take a risk. So let's talk about what's coming up in Genoa City. Victor Newman provided Lily Winters with misleading information, making her even more suspicious of Damien Kane's hidden motive. But Damien will maintain his innocence. Amy Lewis hopes Damien and Nate can stay on track now that they're starting to connect as siblings. Damien will reassure Nate that his heart is in the right place. So Nate may take a chance by believing him despite Lily's reservations. Meanwhile, Chelsea Lawson will tell Billy on her choice to schedule a reunion with Adam. Billy will undoubtedly be upset about this, and may think Chelsea is signing up for further heartbreak. However, Chelsea has the right to make her own romantic decisions, even if Billy believes she is making a mistake. Billy will need to respect boundaries and accept that Chelsea can do whatever she wants. While Billy reacts to Chelsea's relationship developments, Sally should have the opportunity to do the same in society. On Tuesday's episode of YNR, Adam and Sally will have a tense confrontation. Sally was anticipating Adam and Chelsea to reunite anyway, so she may not have had a strong reaction. Sally believes Chelsea and Adam's next chapter was unavoidable, so she'll probably be nice and send her best wishes. Nonetheless, Tuesday's event will provide some opportunity for conflict. Adam and Billy are still adversaries, so he may offer some unpleasant prophecies about Billy's impending business failure, setting Sally off. Sally is already concerned about Billy's alliance with Aristotle Dumas, so hearing Adam's negative remarks would exacerbate her worries. That should offer Sally a chance to lash out, so she'll blast Adam if he presses one too many buttons. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers, Billy's Aristotle alliance may lead to disaster, so keep watching the CBS serial. On Young and Restless, the name Aristotle Dumas is associated with 3 distinct characters. We still don't know who he is because he's employing an alias. One thing is certain. All of the intrigue surrounding the man is leading up to a dramatic revelation. It comes out that Aristotle Dumas is not only Damien's boss, but also a business mogul who has previously competed with Victor Newman to buy several companies. On the surface, this isn't particularly exciting, but the fact that Victor is unaware of not just the man's name, but also the motives for continuing to compete with him, is notable. Why? Victor is always 10 steps ahead of any prospective adversaries. Dumas' ability to remain anonymous, both in terms of his identity and motivations, is extraordinary. Even Michael has yet to provide any answers about his true identity. Damien and Victor are not the only ones that have a link to Dumas. Billy has joined the chat as well. According to what he's informed Phyllis and Sally, the mysterious billionaire contacted him to voice his displeasure with Victor's corrupt dealings with Chancellor, and offered to assist him in reclaiming it. Billy appears to be a means to an end for Dumas, who obviously wants to stick it to the mustache whenever possible. Yes, this guy hates the Black Knight, which hints to his true identity. We wondered if Dumas was Kane Ashby, and some evidence point to him being Lily's ex, especially considering Daniel Goddard's tease of an announcement. But another hypothesis has emerged. Dumas evidently carries a significant grudge against Victor. He clearly wants to assist Billy in regaining custody of Chancellor, in order to inflict revenge on the mustache. Furthermore, the mystery mogul conceals his identity behind a pseudonym based on the name of author Alexander Dumas, who created the Count of Monte Cristo. He named his companies Monte Cristo and Dangler after a character in the book. When you combine all of this knowledge, you get an antagonist with a beef with Victor, as well as a literary background. Looking into the Young and Restless history, you'll discover that one of the soap's early families owned a publishing company. There's your literary connection. Did they ever have a really unpleasant encounter with Victor? As the mustache himself would say, you betcha. We are, of course, talking about the Brooks family. Stuart Brooks' 2 daughters, Leslie and Lori, became involved with the Prentice brothers, Lucas and Lance. To cut a long story short, Leslie and Lance had a child named Brooks Prentice. When her sister got engaged to Lance, she withheld the truth of Brooks' paternity from him, and had a nervous breakdown. Brooks ended up in Lori's custody, and she eventually lost their family business, Prentice Industries, to Victor Newman, who claimed he took it over for her sake, and to teach Lance a lesson. He returned it to Lori as an engagement present, but she left the mustache at the altar and later reunited with Lance. The air in the locker room was thick with tension, the scent of sweat and cheap body spray mixing into an almost suffocating cloud. Nate adjusted the straps of his shoulder pads, his fingers trembling slightly. Tonight was the biggest game of the season, and Coach had just pulled him aside with a proposition. One that could either make him a hero or get him benched for the rest of the year. "You sure about this?" his teammate Marcus muttered under his breath, eyeing the playbook Nate had been studying obsessively. Nate swallowed hard. "No," he admitted. "But if I don't take this shot, I'll never know." The play was risky, a last-minute Hail Mary if their usual strategies failed. Coach had drawn it up specifically for Nate, knowing his speed could be the difference between victory and defeat. But if he messed up, if he fumbled at the wrong moment, the blame would land squarely on his shoulders. The roar of the crowd outside shook the walls, a reminder of how many eyes would be on him. Nate took a deep breath, clenching his fists. He had spent his whole life playing it safe, following the rules, sticking to the script. But tonight he was going all in. Billy slumped onto the park bench, his phone clutched in his hand like a dead weight. The screen still displayed the text message he had received an hour ago, the words burning into his brain no matter how hard he tried to forget them. "We need to talk. It's over. 3 years. 3 damn years." And she ended it with a text. No call, no face-to-face conversation. Just 6 cold words that shattered everything. A jogger passed by, headphones in, oblivious to the way Billy's world had just imploded. He wanted to scream, to throw his phone into the pond and watch it sink, but all he could do was sit there numb. His mind raced with questions. Was it something he'd done? Had she met someone else? Or had she just been waiting for the right moment to cut him loose? The worst part? He saw it coming. The late-night excuses, the canceled plans, the way her texts had grown shorter, less frequent. He'd ignored the signs, convincing himself it was just a rough patch. Now the truth was staring him in the face, and there was no pretending anymore. Billy exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. What now? Call her? Beg for an explanation? Or just accept it, and move on like she clearly had? His thumb hovered over her contact, hesitating. Then, with a bitter laugh, he shoved the phone into his pocket. If she couldn't even bother to break up with him properly, she didn't deserve another second of his time. Adam drummed his fingers against the desk, his patience wearing thin. Across from him, Sally clenched her jaw, her grip tightening around her pen. "I'm not asking for much," Adam said, his voice deceptively calm. "Just a few revisions. You can handle that, can't you?" Sally's eyes flickered with something dangerous. "You've changed the requirements 3 times this week. At this point, I don't even know what you want." Adam smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Then figure it out. That's your job, isn't it?" The air between them crackled, the tension so thick it could have been cut with a knife. Sally had been putting up with Adam's condescending remarks for months, biting her tongue to keep the peace. But this was the last straw. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You know what? No." Adam blinked. "Excuse me." "I said no." Sally's voice was steady, her hands no longer shaking. "I'm done jumping through hoops just so you can move the goalposts again. If you want it done your way, do it yourself." Adam's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl. "You're making a mistake." Sally grabbed her bag, slinging it over her shoulder. "No, the mistake was thinking I had to put up with this." She turned on her heel and walked out, leaving Adam staring after her, his arrogance crumbling into disbelief. The 3 stories unfolded in different corners of the same town, each character facing a moment that would define them. Nate took the field, his heart pounding as the final seconds ticked down. The ball was in his hands now, literally. He could play it safe, pass to a teammate, and let someone else take the fall if things went wrong. Or he could trust himself and go for the win. The defense charged toward him. Nate's muscles tensed. Then, with a burst of speed he didn't know he had, he dodged left, weaving through the opposing players like a ghost. The end zone was right there. Just a few more steps. A linebacker lunged. Nate twisted, the ground rushing up to meet him. For a terrifying second he thought he'd failed. Then the ref's whistle blew, his arms shooting up. Touchdown! The crowd erupted. Nate lay on the grass breathless, his teammates piling on top of him in celebration. He'd taken the risk, and it had paid off. Billy didn't call her. Instead he went home, poured himself a drink, and let himself feel the anger, the hurt, the betrayal. And then when the storm inside him finally quieted, he made a decision. He deleted her number. It wasn't about pride. It was about self-respect. If she wanted out, fine. But he wasn't going to waste another second chasing someone who didn't want him. The next morning he woke up lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. The pain was still there, but so was something else. The certainty that he'd be okay. Sally didn't look back as she left the office. She didn't need to. Adam's stunned expression was burned into her memory, a reminder that she'd finally stood up for herself. Her phone buzzed. An email from HR requesting a meeting. She smiled. Let Adam explain why his best employee had walked out. She had better things to do. By the end of the week, Nate was the team's new star. Billy had reconnected with old friends he'd neglected during his relationship. And Sally had 3 job offers from companies that actually valued her skills. They had all faced a moment where they could have backed down, played it safe, stayed silent. But they hadn't. And because of that, their lives would never be the same. Sometimes the biggest risks led to the best rewards. Sometimes bad news was a blessing in disguise. And sometimes, pushing someone too far was the best thing you could do for them.